What is Canada's Online Streaming Act? The Online Streaming Act, or Bill C-11, was passed by the Canadian Senate in February 2023 and received royal absent in April 2023. The bill amends Canada's Broadcasting Act to include internet, video, and digital media. It marks the first substantial reform to the Broadcasting Act since 1991. The act strives to regulate the online services operating within Canada by establishing a fair and competitive environment for streaming platforms. Bill C-11 also aims to simultaneously prioritize accessibility, promote Canadian content and cultural diversity, and increase the power of Canadian radio, or the CRTC, which stands for Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications. Now, since that was passed, Coach Colin here, Sold Not For Sale podcast. Since that was passed, this is what Canadians see when they try to look up news on Facebook and Instagram. This is what they see. This is what they see. By a law that was saying that it's looking to promote Canadians, it's going to be good for the people. Now they have something that's very similar happening, but this time it's happening to podcasting. One very big podcaster in Canada says what it's created in the short term is poison for an innovative industry, which is uncertainty, Brown said. Nobody knows how this is going to play out. Nobody knows what their obligations are going to be, and nobody knows if it's going to be to their benefit. This is very interesting because this just happened with Bill C-11. And now this is what Canadians see when they go to look up news. What's going to happen for Canadians now when they go to look up podcasting after the podcasts have been regulated the exact same way? I wonder. Joe Rogan is talking about this with the gentleman from Trigonometry. If you don't know about that podcast, you should look into it. It's a great podcast. It's all about exercising freedom of speech and having conversations that make people uncomfortable, including them, including their guests. They've had Sam Harris on. They've had Neil deGrasse Tyson on. And they really exercise freedom of speech within those, and they really exercise their patience within those. They're great guys, and they practice what they preach every single day. They're on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm going to play a clip of them now talking about what's going on in Canada when it comes to podcasts. Let's get into that clip right now. And before I do, of course, I'm going to bring you to the store. This is the Sold Not For Sale shirt. It's getting cold for some of you, so I'm pulling up shirts now. But for me, it's hot, so I got t-shirts as well. This is the We the People shirt. Klaus Schwab getting the middle finger, because when you tell the people that they will own nothing and be happy, the best response you can possibly get, best case scenario, is that you just get a middle finger. What he should be getting is something completely different. And we also have the Public Enemy #1 shirt, because if you Google this gentleman, Klaus Schwab, Henry Kissinger's protege, you'll understand quickly why he is Public Enemy #1. And again, if you want 10% off of anything that you see in the store, all you got to do is put in the discount code I am Coach Colin, all capital letters, all one word, 1L in the name Colin, gets you 10% off on us. And if you've done that with us already, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are much appreciated. Now let's get in to the clip.
Oh yeah, and I was reading about this bill, because I woke up and we're jet lagged, so I woke up at a ridiculous time. I went on the phone, which you should never do. Let's be honest, that is a bad way to start the day.
It's not good.
No. And then I was reading about what they're doing. It's terrifying. So they want to bring in this bill whereby they regulate podcasts. So what they want to do is every podcast streamer or whatever it is platform that makes more than $10 million revenue, not profit, revenue, has to register with the Canadian government. They then want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening to right, to their
Oh my God.
to the government.
Imagine
Trudeau.
getting a hold of Alex Jones's email list.
Probably a bunch of senators on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, imagine
Yeah.
And
the
then
government can get that.
they're talking right now about, and maybe we're going to need to fact check this again because I was reading it this morning, but basically they want it to promote Canadian, something to do with like basically what Canadian greatness, whatever it is, they talk about it, and Indigenous affairs. And you're like, oh, so they're going to say a number of things are un-Canadian. And then you can just silence them. Look what Trudeau did with the truckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
We just had one of their guys on to talk about it.
Not just the truckers, but people who donated to the truckers got their bank accounts closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is wild.
Yeah.
You got locked out of all of your money because you donated to a cause where you didn't think that people should have to take an experimental vaccine in order to be able to work to drive a truck.
But
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You think that's okay? Like, that's so not okay. The fact that those people aren't up in arms. The whole country didn't freak out and demand a fucking change. Like, you can't have... That's dictatorship stuff. That's
Right.
what that is. It's Banana Republic stuff.
We do these calls with our top supporters, and we have some in Canada. We have this lady who's been supporting us for years, and she's always fine. And in the middle of this thing, she was like, "I'm terrified. I'm not going to be able to eat because they're going to shut down my bank account."
God.
Right? In Canada.
It's so crazy that they think they could do that if people disagree with them. Because that's all they're doing. They're just disagreeing. And they're supporting a protest. It should be, and it was a peaceful protest. Those people did it the right way. They just parked their trucks and they didn't block roads off. They didn't do anything fucked up.
But if you frame it that these people, which is how they were being framed as racist far right, well, look,
Yeah.
you're giving money to a far right racist organization. You're encouraging hate. Well, the government has to step in. We have to step in, and we need to freeze everything because we need to make everything safe.
What was this?
Now, I want you to just take what he said and take it away from the truckers and apply it to podcasts. Maybe they decide that there is a podcast in Canada or operating within Canada, which I'd like to add, they have not given the parameters to what that means. Joe Rogan's in Canada. Joe Rogan's podcast is in Canada. It's the #1 podcast in Canada. Does he have to register? Does he have to give over information of who's listening? Right? How far does this go? They haven't really given the terms that they need. What does operate in Canada mean? Does that just mean everybody who wants to have a podcast that's available to people in Canada has to register with the government? That's crazy. That's insane. And you better believe that right now it's $10 million in revenue. They're going to lower that eventually. They're going to say, because they're going to realize, okay, all the really fringe types who are really speaking truth and really just don't care to just say what it is and how it is, they're making way under $10 million. So we're just going to lower that bar. We're going to move that goalpost nice and low. Now, if you make any money, now if you just have a podcast, it's going to keep going. It's not going to stop. Now, again, go back to what he just said. If you take that trucker mentality, what they did with the truckers, and put it to podcasts, somebody is saying something that could be very anti-Trudeau, anti the party in power, anti his administration. Now, all of a sudden, that's branded as something that's seen as the truckers were far right, misogynistic, racist, all these things. Now they find out, maybe you're in Canada and they find out you've been listening to this podcast. They find out that you've been donating to this podcast. Now all of a sudden your bank account's frozen. That's how far it could get. And that's not crazy talk because it already happened with the truckers. It already happened with them. There are a bunch of gentlemen sitting in trucks, honking their horns, causing a bit of a disruption because that's what you do in protest. You want to disrupt things so the powers that be can see you and hear you and actually have to have a dialogue with you. Those people got donations. 200 people got their bank accounts frozen. No timeline on when it was going to be unfrozen. None. What's to stop them from doing that when it comes to podcasts with this new regulation? I just showed you what people in Canada see when they're looking up news on Instagram and Facebook. Now what's going to happen when they go onto Spotify, when they go onto Apple Podcasts, when they go onto Anchor, when they go onto any podcast platform? What's going to start happening when they go onto YouTube? How far is it going to go? How far is this going to go? Man, Canada, stand up. Stand up already. Stand up already. Stand up already. Listen, nothing violent, nothing. I can't say anything, but bank accounts get frozen, right? I don't know, man. Seems like there needs to be a change over there, and everybody that I know is just kind of like, elections in like what, 2025? What? They're already regular. By the time it gets to 2025, when they have their election, well, how far is this going to be? It's going to be like, listen, unless you want to vote for Trudeau, you can't participate in the election and you have to sit in this camp for a while. I'm just making things up here. But how far does it go? They're already taking these steps. They've already overreached and overreached and overreached again, like they have some kind of extendo arm when it comes to government overreach. How long are you going to put up with that? I don't know, guys. If you like the podcast, like it. If you aren't subscribed already, subscribe. Let me know in the comment section. You're in Canada. I know for me, if you're Canadian, you probably know this guy, Mr. Sunshine Baby. I am following Mr. Sunshine Baby. I used to see him in my feed just as much as I would see Joe Rogan. And now I don't see anything from him at all. Both his channels. Nothing. What's going on? How much of this is going to happen? All right, guys. Other than that, I'm out. Pray for Canada.